have to master the fundamentals of life before you can start building an empire. People want to be multimillionaires. They want to build empires. They want to have all these things, yachts and cars and mansions. But guess what? You can't even balance a checkbook.
Welcome to the Bedros Keuilian Show.
Hey guys, welcome to the Bedros Keuilian Show. My name is Bedros Keuilian, and today's episode is about the 4 big life lessons that I want you to take away. In other words, if I were to kick the can today and there were 4 big life lessons that I could pass along to you, these are what those lessons would be. Now, before I share those lessons with you, I want to let you know about this experience I had about 10 days ago in beautiful Maine. And this part of the story ties into the 4 lessons, so you'll definitely want to pay attention. So there I was in beautiful Maine. And if you know anything about Maine, it is the uppermost northeast part of the United States. And of course, I live in Southern California. So I'm down here on the southwestern side of our state or our country, right? And so my son and I, my son Andrew, who's 19, we went to the Origin Jiu-Jitsu immersion camp. If you've never heard of this, Jocko Willink and Pete Roberts, who own Origin, the apparel company, they hold this amazing 7-day experience where if you're into jiu-jitsu, you're literally flying in on day 1, and then for 5 days straight, you're training jiu-jitsu 3 times a day. They feed you, they house you, they bring in some of the best, most awesome instructors on the planet, like professional Brazilian jiu-jitsuers who teach you the nuances of escapes and submissions and positions and takedowns, all of the details that you want. And what's really great about this camp, man, is they have it broken up into categories, right? So all of us white belts were in one part of the camp, and the brown and black belts were in another part of the camp. And then, of course, the purple and blue belts were in another part of the camp. And it's almost like gladiator training, because you just eat and train. So now that you've got a visual picture, I need you to understand where this camp is taking place. Not only is it taking place in Maine, but it is taking place at a beautiful camp called Camp Laurel. Camp Laurel is, and I looked it up online, it's about $20,000 to send your kid there for the summer. And it's a kids camp. It's about 200 acres, sits right on the lake. Beautiful. If you watch any of my social media last week, then you would have seen me posting pictures. And so Andrew and I got some kayaking in, and we got to, hang out by the bonfires in the evenings and talk to people and meet a lot of great people. But everybody stays in at those cabins, right? Like when you send a kid to a summer camp, they stay there for about 8-9 weeks, cost $20,000 for the kids to stay there. They learn things, and they kayak, and they ride horses, and woodworking and metal shop and all this stuff. And I imagine it's just a fun experience for them. Well, this Origin Jiu-Jitsu camp is a 1-week version of that for adults who love jiu-jitsu. And in fact, what was really cool about it too, and a big shout out to Pete Roberts and Jocko for creating this, is on day 1 when Andrew and I, because I've only been doing jiu-jitsu for 2 years, so I'm still a white belt. And when Andrew and I went to the white belt mats, there was probably about 180 to 200 people on the white belt mats. And this is massive. Like, it was in the basketball gymnasium, right? Like, think about a high school or a college basketball gymnasium. It was like the mats were that big. And so one of the instructors on day 1 asked, hey, who's brand new? Like, who's never done jiu-jitsu before? And 5 hands went up. Like, that was the first time they put on a gi, or later that day, they're going to put on a rash guard and actually experience and learn jiu-jitsu. And they were there to experience that 3 times a day for the next 5 days, right? Like, talk about getting out of their comfort zone. And we'll get back to that in a minute towards the end. But I thought it was an awesome experience. So, but I have to draw this beautiful experience to you. Remember, I said it's a kids camp. And so we're all staying at cabins, right? When you pay your fee for this thing, it's all inclusive. Your sleeping quarters, your food, all the training, it's all inclusive, which is rad. And so Andrew and I showed up Sunday, the 17th. And the camp starts the next day on the 18th. And Pete Roberts picked us up from our car. We, landed at the airport, drove to the camp about 2 hours, and Pete Roberts picks us up, and we put our luggage in the back of this golf cart, and Pete's being a gracious host and showing us around the camp, and hey, there's the lake and all that. It's late at night, so you can barely see the lake, but you kind of get a good lay of the land. And all of these cabins are in clusters. So for example, the cabins that I stayed at is BEC 4, BEC 4. And in the BEC category, there's like 5 different cabins, right? So I was in Beck 4, there's a Beck 3, Beck 2, Beck 1, Beck 5, Beck 6, etc. And each of these cabins have anywhere from 12 to 16 beds. Now, these cabins are not massive. They're structured for kids. And the reality is they're pretty much just going to sleep there and use a restroom, and that's it. I quickly learned that there are no showers in my cabin. In fact, there was another cabin off-site that we had to walk to with our towel, and that's where you got to shower in a stand-up shower. More on that in a minute, because I had a very awkward experience in the shower, Ed. You're not going to believe this, bro. It was mortifying. And actually, it was 2 very mortifying experiences. And I'm going to share this with you guys in a minute, because I feel we're all family here, and I can talk about what happens in a community shower at Camp Laurel off-site from Beck 4. But in this cabin, there are 16 beds, and they're all bunk beds. So, being that I'm 6 foot, 227 pounds now, I go, hey, son, why don't you take the top bunk? Because you're lighter than me, I'll take the bottom bunk. Now, when I lay down in the bottom bunk, I realized these are made for kids who are much shorter than me. So imagine the entire night as you're sleeping, you're leg pressing you got the headboard, and then you got the footboard. You're leg pressing the footboard. Otherwise, you have to sleep in the fetal position, knees curled up, and it's a very narrow bed, very thin mattress. I imagine this is what it's like in prison. I don't know. But you're pressed against the footboard. And so the whole time, I was just telling people, like, if you could just imagine you're leg pressed, like whatever, some weight, and you go to sleep like that in one position, right? All good. Andrew's above me in the top bunk, and I could see the plywood is bending. And I'm thankful that if anyone's going to fall on me, it's going to be my son and not any other of these men. Now, there were somewhere between 13 and 16 dudes in our cabin. Now, it's important for you to understand this. It is a square cabin, and in every corner, there's a bunk bed, and then you put your luggage and your backpack right there, and you try and stay neat and tidy. And I could throw an M&M and hit the guy next to me if I just barely flick it, right? Everything's that tight. Now, since Andrew and I showed up late, we got the last set of bunk beds that were closest to the community restrooms in the cabin. And that means that if anyone wanted to use one of the 4 toilets in the cabin, they have to walk by me and Andrew's bunk beds. Well, that's all great until you realize grown men have prostate issues. And sometimes as you grow older, you gotta pee in the middle of the night. Now, I don't know if Pete Roberts issued everybody cement shoes, but I gotta tell you, at around 1 or 2 in the morning, I swear men were getting up and putting on their concrete and cement shoes and stomping by me and Andrew's bunk bed on their way to the restroom. And then maybe Pete Roberts thought it was funny to loosen up all of the springs and hinges on the restroom toilet stalls, because as these dudes would open up the toilet stall to go in, it would smash shut, and you'd think like, boom, a gunshot went off. And so all night long, I'm on edge, jumping and getting jump scared, and I'm a light sleeper as it is, man. And so, I didn't get a pair of concrete shoes issued to me. I look at Andrew's side of the bunk bed. I don't see any concrete shoes there. I must have missed out on that opportunity. But then it gets better. As you start dozing off, you see like faint blue lights of dudes watching stuff on their phone. Maybe they're watching a YouTube video, or they're watching their favorite movie, or they're scrolling social media. I get it, man. It's kind of like we're on vacation, so have at it, right? But I think what was happening is some of the dudes who were on top of on the second deck of the bunks, they would drop their phones. And I'm telling you, those phones would hit the wooden floor so hard, it felt like those fucking things were falling from the International Space Station. There's no way they were just falling off the top bunk. It was falling off the International Space Station, man, because boof, it would hit. And man, I had some of the greatest dudes in my cabin too. I'm not dissing on them, like Brian and Jared and Kyle and Mr. Randall, who looked like he's probably in his, late 50s, early 60s, and his black belt was so frayed and old, it was like light gray in color, and like the man was deadly. And then there's Luke and Neil and Josh and Tim, all great dudes, man, all great dudes. But man, they were issued concrete shoes to stomp around in the middle of the night, and some of them had figured out a way to throw fucking iPhones down in the middle of the night from the International Space Station. Either that or they would get up on their top bunk and spike it. There's simply no way that they were dropping the iPhone out of their hand. It had to be a fucking spike because this thing would hit with thunder and you're just jumping up and you get all that adrenaline and cortisol rush and then you just breathe your way. You do that neurological breathing that Huberman talks about. And then slowly you self-soothe and you fall back asleep just in time for another fucking phone to come smashing down. And that was my experience in the cabin. Now here's the good news. At some point, your alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and you wake up and you realize, I'm going to go shower. Well, there is no shower in your cabin. So, Johnny Slicks, Nick Koumalastos, he started with his business partner a men's hair care product called Johnny Slicks. And Johnny Slicks, Nick Koumalastos were coaching clients of mine several years ago, and I helped them grow and scale this business. And in the goodie bags that you get when you're at the Origin Jiu-Jitsu Immersion Camp, well, as it turns out, you got two things. You got this balm to put on your body where you're having aches and pains. Amazing balm. It's like so much better than Icy Hot or anything like that you would put on an ache or pain. And it was by Johnny Slicks, right? And you also got a antibacterial soap called Beast Wash by Johnny Slicks as well. And I was like, dude, this is my friend's company. I've helped him scale this company. It's so cool that it's in everyone's goodie bag. Now I've got a soap. I had to bring my own towel from home. I march across the land to that other cabin where all these very narrow shower stalls are. And I'm there and I got my Beast Wash. And I find one of the by the way, the shower stalls, I have to draw it for you. I mean, it's community showers. It's like 6 showers on one side and then a thin bench and then 6 showers on the other side. And the entrance to those showers are about the same width as the entrance to your bed, like your bedroom door, probably around 32 inches, right? I think the average entrance of a bedroom door is 32 inches. Of your main door on your house, if you have one door, it's like 36 inches. I used to know this stuff. Don't ask me how. I used to do little handyman stuff around the house back in the day. And so these showers were about 32 inches wide in terms of the entrance. And you're like standing up and it's just boom, lukewarm water. You got your Beast Wash and you brought your shampoo from home and you got your towel and you do your best to not make eye contact with anyone's brown eye or any pee holes or anything like that. I mean, one time I looked over at some guy and I want to be like, bro, you fuck with that? Just kidding. No, he was hung like a Clydesdale. I would never say that. He definitely fucks with that. But so I get in the shower. Now, Ed, the curtain on the shower, it's like old school 1983, like a short little curtain rod, and it's got these little plastic hooks that hold a curtain, a plastic thick vinyl curtain there in place. So if the entrance is 32 inches, the joke that Camp Laurel was playing on everybody is that the curtain itself, if you could expand it all the way, you're lucky if you get about 28 inches of curtain in a 32-inch shower. So that means once you're showering yourself, depending on how you got the curtain pulled, you're either exposing a part of your ass cheeks or a part of your cock tip. That's just a reality. There's no other way to do this. And I'm telling you, all these dudes, Adam, Brian, fucking Luke, Jared, they'll all tell you. They will tell you in the comment section if I'm lying. These curtains were substantially shorter or not narrower than the width of the shower itself, bro. So now you have to make a decision. Do I expose my cheeks to the free world or do I expose the tip to the free world? And so I thought I'd get a little crafty. I perfectly positioned the shower curtain in between. So I gave them a little bit of cheeks and a little bit of tip. And that's how I took my shower, bro. So if you're looking at my shit, which you shouldn't be, now you're getting a little bit of hairy cheeks because I'm a very hairy man. And then you're seeing the tip and you're wondering what the fuck is going on. But the next day, bro, I tried going to a different shower thinking maybe I just had a faulty shower curtain. Same thing. 32-inch entrance, maybe a 27-inch wide curtain. And so the joke was on me. And so that's how it went, man. But I got to tell you that jiu-jitsu immersion camp that Origin runs is top notch. It's freaking amazing. Andrew and I had a blast, and we're going next year. And if you are into jiu-jitsu, you got to go next year. It's an awesome experience. Highly recommend it. And shout out to Jocko and Pete for running a fucking world-class event and feeding 500 dudes 4 times a day, right? Like, that ain't no small feat. So with that said, here's the big 4 takeaways, life lessons that I've learned over and over again in life. I've learned it in the gym. I've learned these 4 lessons in business. I've now learned these 4 lessons on the jiu-jitsu mats. And when these 4 lessons keep showing up in different parts of life, I realize these 4 lessons are critical for every single one of us, whether you do jiu-jitsu, you work out, you're in life. Like, these are 4 fundamental laws of life that you have to understand if you want to thrive and have a passionate, purpose-driven, fucking awesome life. So here we go. Lesson number 1. Pressure creates growth. Now, there's no better place to figure that out than on the mats when you're doing jiu-jitsu. Because if you're just rolling with people who are your size or your skill level, or maybe lighter or lower in skill level, then that top pressure that they're going to give you when they're in side control or mount or scarf hold or north-south. You know, north-south is a pin. And you know this, you're a brown belt. North-south is a pin. But I also realized north-south is just a jiu-jitsu way of saying 69 to not sound gay, right? Because it's like, well, hey, Ed, let's get in a 69 position so that I can try and submit you. I mean, that alone sounds horrible, right? But if I say, Ed, let's go into north-south, well, that sounds a little scientific, and that sounds like I might be able to actually do something to submit you. To submit another man in a 69 position is fucking awful. So the Brazilians, in all their wisdom, created the north-south and not 69. I thought it was brilliant. Great move out there. My Portuguese-speaking friends, the Brazilians, I love that. Next year, they're going to fucking destroy me for this. I know it. But also, I realized when you're in someone's guard, like, what a cool way to say it, right? Like, oh, I got Ed in my guard. Another way to say that is we're in missionary position. Is it not? I mean, the guard is missionary position. So, I mean, this is what happens when I go to the Origin Jiu-Jitsu camp, because I do jiu-jitsu 2 to 3 times a week here in California, right? But now I'm there for 5 days and I'm doing it 3 times a day. And I'm realizing the nuances that, bro, we're 69ing and getting into fucking missionary position left and right. And then it's okay for another man to drip on you. Like, if you can get your girl to like drip or squirt, like, that's like, hey, high five yourself, right? When another man squirts on you, like they're dripping sweat, you begin to question yourself why you voluntarily stay under that position still. But it's jiu-jitsu, and so you do. I'm not saying it's gay. I'm just saying it's slightly homosexual, this jiu-jitsu business. And I can't wait to continue it on for the rest of my life. So what does that say about me? I don't know. You can pass judgment as you wish. But understand that pressure creates growth, guys. And when you are feeling the pressure in jiu-jitsu and you're rolling with people heavier than you, who know how to use their weight and who know how to clamp down on you, like Mike Velez says, the black belt that I train under, he goes, I'm like a ratchet. Once I ratchet onto you and I tighten up and I take away an arm or a leg or an ankle or a neck, a body part, he goes, you don't get it back. And so if someone's heavy and they know how to use their weight for pressure, that creates so much growth. In life, it's the same thing. If you don't voluntarily try and compete in life against people who are bigger, heavier, metaphorically, right? More skilled metaphorically, you're really staying in your comfort zone. And when you're in your comfort zone, there's not a lot of growth that takes place in an area that you're already comfortable with. Growth takes place outside of your comfort zone. And so when, as a white belt, I'm rolling with people who are blue belts and purple belts, they're more skilled than me. Then I'm rolling with, then the guys invited me to the brown belt and black belt mats for the open mats for the drilling. And let me tell you, guys that are heavier than me, taller than me, and more skilled than me in terms of belt level, all I could do under their weight was just run out the clock and protect my limbs from being broken and my neck from being strangled, because that is the gift of jiu-jitsu, right? Attack on your limbs and your neck. And so you want to talk about not hyperventilating, not panicking. Like that is the place to do it. And it teaches you so much control in a chaotic environment. Guys, quick interruption to the Bedros Keuilian Show. If you want better health, more energy, you want to fight off inflammation, and you want to boost your immune system, then you are probably taking a lot of supplements like I used to. I say used to because I stopped taking all these different supplements, and you can now throw away your vitamin C, throw away your zinc, throw away your vitamin D3, your B12, your ginger, your turmeric, your echinacea, and your astragalus. Why? Because all of it now is available in the TrueLean Everyday Wellness packets. So instead of spending $200 to $300 a month on supplements like that, for a fraction of that, you're going to get the TrueLean Wellness Shot delivered right to your door for free shipping. And you're going to use the code BEDROS when you go to TrueLean.com to get 50% off, and $1 of every single order goes to Shriners Children's Hospital. So go to TrueLean.com, use code BEDROS, and order your 30-day supply of the TrueLean Everyday Wellness Shot. Now back to the show. Lesson number 2 is exactly that, is to stay calm under chaos. When you voluntarily put yourself under that level of stress, and in the past, you guys have heard me talk about Misogi or Suckfest, where I'll walk from sundown to sunup all throughout the night, right here in the hills of Chino Hills, and I'll just put like 35, 40 miles on throughout the middle of the night. So I'm sleep deprived, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. Yeah, I got a bottle of water with me, I'm pissing in bushes. But the whole idea there is to test yourself. Like when your mind begins to race and panic and chaos sets in and you realize like I could just tap and give up. Or if I'm doing Suckfest, I could just go home and sleep in my bed. I don't have to keep walking and hiking until the sun comes up. Only you know that you gave up. No one else would know, right? Unless you're on the mats, obviously the person that you're competing against. But if you can learn to stay calm under chaos, that is such a great lesson in life. That skill is not developed. That ability is not developed by reading about it or hearing about it here on a video or a podcast. That is developed by voluntarily putting yourself in a place where the chaos comes in. I remember the first 3 or 4 months of jiu-jitsu, each time somebody would get on mount, mount, yet another gay homosexual position, like mount, like you mount your lady. Like why would a man mount me? But a man does. A man mounts me, and then there's something called a high mount. A high mount is basically, I'm going to put my dick in your mouth. Am I right? These guys are laughing behind the camera. Ed, you're a brown belt. Am I right? Because a regular mount, you're on their waist. You're like literally sitting on top of them. You're on their belly button. So now you got your dick in their belly button. A high mount is, I've got my dick in your mouth, which means my balls are in your chin, right? So you got chin nuts. And that's a high mount. And so, but when someone's mounted you, and in this case, there's something called a smother tap, where then they mount you, you know this, Ed, then, so they're on your belly and they've pinched their knees tight across your midsection. This sounds so gay. But then they come down with their sweaty gi or rash guard and they just bury their chest on your face. I would get so claustrophobic, I would tap immediately, not because of any pain, but I would get claustrophobic. I start hyperventilating and then boom, I'm tapping. Man, these days, a dude could mount me. He could high mount me. He could put that dick deep down my throat. It doesn't matter, Ed, because when they come down on me, as long as I can get like 1/8 of one nostril to one side and I could breathe, I've controlled the chaos in my head so many times through the repetitions that I'm able to actually breathe through this very uncomfortable and claustrophobic position and think, right? Staying calm under chaos means that you're able to deal with pressure and discomfort, and in this case, claustrophobia, and still think and process your way out of the problem. And if you could do that on the mats in jiu-jitsu, you can do that in life, in a relationship or in your business, right? In any category of life. So you have to learn how to stay calm under pressure, and there's no better place to learn that than in jiu-jitsu. Progress is invisible, but it is inevitable. And we've seen this, right? Where maybe you start a diet or a training program and you're working out and maybe you lost a pound or two, it's been a few weeks. Now you lost maybe 5 or 10 pounds, but it seems invisible. And the weight you're pushing, yeah, it's a little bit more weight, and maybe your cardiovascular endurance has improved a little bit, but it's nothing substantial. It's all but invisible. For the effort and the work that you're putting in, it is all but invisible. You're like, fuck, man. all this work I'm doing. I've seen this happen to me in business. Like I'm creating offers and I'm creating campaigns and I'm perfecting my product and service and I'm hiring people and I'm training them up and I'm creating systems and processes. And I just don't see the money pouring into the bank account, or money pours in, but then more of it pours out. And you're like, what the fuck is happening, right? Well, progress is invisible because it happens slowly, but it is inevitable if you continue to do it. Because then what happens, whether you're in the gym or in business, or in this case, on the mats with jiu-jitsu, one day someone tells you, bro, you look awesome. Or one day you find the right lighting and you start seeing the outline of your abs. Or one day you hit that number on the scale that you were finally trying to reach. Or one day you're able to squat or bench or deadlift that weight that was that PR that you were looking for, right? Or on the mats, you've been tapping and you've been getting injured and you've been at best running out the clock, but then boom, you get a sweep and then you get side control and then you land a perfect, beautiful Americana and you get this person to submit and you're like, holy shit, 8 months in, I get my first submission, right? Why? Because it's invisible, but it's inevitable if you stick to it. One of the greatest lessons in life, applicable in personal relationships, in business, in your health, and in combatives on the mats. And the fourth and final life lesson that I want to part ways with you here is to master the fundamentals. You know, I asked ChatGPT before starting this episode, I said, what are the top 3 submissions in UFC fights taken from jiu-jitsu? And it's the rear naked chokehold, it's the triangle, and it is the Americana. I'm sorry, the armbar, right? The rear naked chokehold, the triangle, and the Americana. And then in the top 5, there was like the arm bar and there was something else. I forget what the 5th one was. All this to tell you is these are the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. You learn all of these 3 moves as a white belt. You perfect it as you go into blue and purple and brown and black, right? And you find the nuances and you see the opportunities when the doors open to be able to deploy those submissions. But you have to master the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu to be able to know when to deploy those things. Sure, are there very fancy moves that you can do that look great on the mats or on social media? Absolutely. Things that involve fucking twirls and tumbles, because why not? It's a gay sport anyway, and I do it happily, and I'm going to continue to do it for decades to come because color me gay. But with that aside, all those fancy tumbles and twirls and octopus guard and K guard and fucking omoplatas and all that shit, I don't even know what those are. Because here I am 2 years in and I get my fair shares of taps in. I'm tapping people out. And I also get tapped out plenty of times by higher belts and people who are far more skilled than me. But guess what? I'm using the fundamentals because each time I drill them, I get better at knowing when to deploy them. And I know how to adjust the nuances to lock on better, to get a better choke, to close the gap, and to be able to get the tap that I'm looking for. The same applies in life. You have to master the fundamentals of life before you can start building an empire, right? People want to be multimillionaires. They want to build empires. They want to have all these things, yachts and fucking cars and mansions. But guess what? You can't even balance a fucking checkbook. You can't even take your current income and stay within a budget so you don't have debt, right? You can't even get your health together right. Like you've got stretch marks on your belly button. You got so much Cheeto dust on your fingers that it's sprinkling into your belly button, for crying out loud. And you can't even get your relationship squared away. You guys are like fucking 2 ships passing in the night. You've become mortal enemies with your honey. Like you got to get your finances squared away and learn how to budget. Get your health squared away. Learn how to be fit. And get your relationship in a decent place where you're civil and you're in love and there's a connection and there's growth together before you could do all the other stuff. You know, there's something called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can look that up. Maslow, he created this hierarchy of needs. It's like a triangle. At the very bottom of that is air. You need air. You need water to survive. Like that's the hierarchy of needs. Once you have air and water, well, okay, now I need shelter. Once I have shelter, okay, now I might need companionship. Once I have companionship and all that stuff, now I need some level of like purpose, right? Like work, vocation. I have companionship and shelter and some purpose and air and water and food. Okay, great. Now there's self-mastery at the highest level, right? There's that highest peak of self-mastery, enlightenment. And it's the hierarchy of needs. Well, you can't develop the highest levels of self-mastery and connect to consciousness, guys, unless you have the fundamentals squared away. And so if you want to get to that place of the peak of that pyramid, work on the foundation of the pyramid, which is your finances, be able to live within a budget, get out of debt, control your spending, learn how to invest. Even if you're not investing now, make the commitment to learn how to invest so that when you are blessed with the cash flow that's coming in, you actually know what the hell to do with that money instead of just blowing it, like I see so many people do, and then ending up broke again as a former rich person. I've seen that way too many times. Get your finances, your health, and your relationship in order so that you can ascend up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you're able to do that, then you got the 4 things squared away, man. Understand that number 1, pressure creates growth. Number 2, stay calm under chaos. Number 3, progress is invisible, but it is inevitable as long as you keep at it. And number 4, must master the fundamentals of life. If you can master the fundamentals of life or the lifts, I mean, think about it in the gym. There's all these like crazy ass workouts you can do in the gym, right? You know, single leg Bulgarian split squats. Cool. Just figure out how to squat first. Figure out how to deadlift. Figure out how to bench. You do those things and you've never worked out, you're going to add probably 20 pounds of muscle in a year. And then you can do all the nuances after that. Guys, I hope you got a lot of value from this episode. If you did, I want you to join me at the Legacy Tribe meetup November 7th and 8th in Chesapeake, Virginia. This is going to be an awesome meetup experience. We're going to leave the link in the description. We're also going to leave the registration link on YouTube in the first comment, so that you guys can click on there and join us out there. But until then, remember this, that average is the enemy. Success is your responsibility, and change can take place in an instant if you are willing to flip the switch. I'll see you next time.